Today on Potential Prospect, we are looking into the early life and current career of Michael Morales. Michael was born in a beautiful city that sits on top of a mountain in Ecuador. This city has old-fashioned cobblestone streets, and you can visit many old gold mines. He stands at 6 feet tall, fights at welterweight, and is currently only 25 years old. So let's stop yapping and get right into it. A young Michael Morales was born in 1999 and started training in the respectable discipline of judo at just 5 years old. At the age of just 10 years old, Michael would switch from judo to wrestling. He would end up winning several youth tournaments, and at the age of 14, his father would bring Michael to Victor Vallejo's academy in Machala, where he would begin to train mixed martial arts. While a young Michael would train MMA, he would juggle a blue-collar job building ships at a naval boat factory. In August of 2018, Michael would make his professional debut in OFC, skipping the amateur scene altogether. In his debut, he would face off with Alvaro. This would go swimmingly for Michael because he would end up knocking out his opponent 3 minutes into the second round. After having his debut go as great as it did, he would fight again in March of 2018, where he would face off with Vacasella once again, this time beating him in the first round due to a doctor stoppage. Michael was looking like a top prospect, but he still needed to get many more fights under his belt. So he would do just that and fight again in December of that same year, this time getting a fresh face in Leonardo Blasco for Michael, but he would still get the win, this time by decision. Michael would keep the momentum going and signed to fight Oscar Ravello in July of 2019. Michael would beat Oscar so badly that his corner would throw in the towel and beg for the fight to be stopped, getting Michael the win in the second round. Naturally, he would want to keep this momentum going, so he would waste no time and fight again in September of that same year, this time fighting Mateus Salazar. This would be the first time he was a main event. Michael would not let this opportunity go to waste and steamroll his opponent, knocking him out just 1 minute into the first round. He would fight 2 months later, in November, headlining the card once again. This time his opponent would be Eric Zambrano. This fight would go just as well as his previous one, knocking out Zambrano just 1 minute and 55 seconds into the first round. After achieving back-to-back 1 minute knockouts, he would fight 1 month later in December, this time fighting Gregory Cisneros. This fight would be just as much of a cakewalk as his last two. He would switch it up and sink in a devastating triangle choke and get the tap just 1 minute into the first round. Michael was on cloud 9 after getting 3 first-round finishes in the last 4 months. And 2 months later, in February of 2020, Michael would fight Mario Navarrete. This wouldn't be as easy of a matchup, but he would still get the finish in the second round. Michael was making a name for himself quickly, and his UFC dreams were slowly becoming a reality, especially considering he was only 21 years old. Michael would slow his roll, but he would fight again in August of that same year, this time fighting Danny Uruguay Bastidas. He would beat his opponent from pillar to post, getting the doctor stoppage win in the first 2 minutes of the first round. Michael would fight again 2 months later in October of 2020, this time facing off with Ricardo Seneto, headlining the card for the third time in his career. And once again, he would get a first round knockout. Michael was very good and had limitless potential, but he still needed to sharpen his tools and get better training partners. In 2021, he would begin his journey traveling through Tijuana, Mexico, eventually finding himself at Interim Gym. This is where he would be able to make a name for himself and get his name out there to some of the biggest promotions in the sport. And in April of 2021, he would fight in a Mexican promotion called UWC, this time fighting Miguel Azamenti. This fight would go just as his previous fights would go, just not as quickly, but Michael would still get the knockout in the second round. The UFC was noticing this 22-year-old fighter with an amazing 11-0 record, as well as a majority of his fights not seeing the second round. They saw a potential star and would want to give him an invite to a very popular show, Dana White's Contender Series, to see if he was a legit fighter or just another hype train beating cans on the regional scene. And in September of 2021, he would make his appearance on the show, fighting Nikolay Veretennikov. This would be a back and forth scrap with both fighters showing their best, but one man showed more to the judges and ended up getting the nod from the judges. That man was Michael Morales. Dana was blown away at the skill, toughness, and fight IQ of a 22-year-old fighter. and he proved that Michael was indeed the real deal. So the UFC would get him on a card as fast as they could, and that would be in January of 2022 fighting Trevin Giles. Most would be nervous in their debut and wouldn't perform at their best, but Michael is built different. He would destroy Giles, knocking him out 4 minutes into the first round. Michael would waste no time in fighting again in July of 2022, this time fighting another very good fighter, Adam Fugit. This would be a very hard fight that tested both men, but once again, Michael would come out on top, knocking out Fugit just 1 minute into the third round. Michael would take some time off to enjoy the fruits of his labor, taking 11 months off, fighting again in July of 2023, going up against a very tough veteran, Max Payne Griffin. This would turn out to be a back and forth scrap with both men being tested, but Michael was not new to hard fights, and it was evident due to him winning the exchanges, eventually leading to a unanimous decision win for the young prodigy. Michael was on an amazing pace to get into the rankings, but he still needed to build even more of a fan base and prove his worth to the big man, Dana White. So the UFC would match him up with another fighter who got into the UFC at a very young age, Jake Matthews. They would fight in November of 2023, and it would live up to the expectation. It was a back and forth war, but only one person can win, and that man was Michael Morales. And that brings us to this weekend. Michael Morales is going to be fighting the best gatekeeper the promotion has to offer, Neil Magny. If Michael can get past Magny, then he deserves to be in the rankings. But Magny has been in this position many times, and he has been known to fraud check many hype trains that seemingly cannot be beat. Overall, Michael Morales has 16 wins with 0 losses. He has 11 knockout wins, 1 submission win, and has won 4 decisions, 7 of those finishes being in the very first round. I'm picking Michael Morales to beat Magny, but there are many questions that need to be answered before I can confidently say that he will be champion one day. What are your guys' opinions on Michael Morales? Do you think that he'll be in the top 10, top 5, or do you think that he'll even become champion? And who do you think is going to win this fight? Will he be fraud checked, or will he pass Neil Magny with flying colors? And if you guys watched the video this far, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as it is the only way to support the channel. I hope you guys have a great week and enjoy the fights this weekend. Bye.